What is going on, y'all? Welcome to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the mission on the on the SHR Media Network, where masculinity has not been recalled and faith hasn't been neutered. Today is Thursday, January 15th, 2026, and this is not just politics, but this is spiritual warfare. And we're done pretending. We're done pretending it's anything different. So we're done pulling punches, and we are never apologizing. So on today's show, we have the zero-day collapse in Iran, where the mullahs have swapped bread and water for bullets, and is epic proof that disarmed people, a disarmed populace, is little more than a target. So we'll get into that, and we'll get into SCOTUS and Ketanji Brown Jackson's cisgingers take, and we're going to get into the myth of neutral laws and the New York's shakedown of a Florida gun dealer. We're going to get into all of that and more. So let's get after it. Before we get into everything, there was another ICE-involved shooting in Minnesota. So I want to just touch on that real quick. It probably won't be real quick, but these people are ridiculous. These people are absolutely ridiculous. There was a targeted ICE operation against a Venezuelan man who was here illegally, and it turned into a fight for that ICE agent's life. And the target of the operation, he got out of his car and got into a struggle with the agent. And then two neighbors entered the scene and started attacking him with a shovel and a broomstick, attempting to intervene. Just ridiculous. And so the officer, the agent, in fear for his life, he fired a shot, and he struck the illegal alien in the leg. Protesters used all of that chaos to use that as a distraction to loot one of the federal vehicles. And they took documents, and I saw a video. I couldn't find it to show you guys, but I saw a video on the news where they actually stole one of the rifles that they had in the vehicle. It was locked up. The agents didn't do anything wrong, but they tied a rope to it allegedly and used a pickup truck to snatch it out of the vehicle and open it up. And they took one of the rifles and a bunch of other a bunch of documents. And turns out that these documents had the names, addresses, phone numbers of a number of federal agents, FBI and ICE, according to the reports that I've seen. And within hours, a network, Midas Touch, was broadcasting, live streaming the names, photos, personal residences, phone numbers of the agents, citing First Amendment issues and public interest. This puts them square in the crosshairs of 18 USC 119, which makes it a felony to publish restricted personnel info of federal employees, with the obvious intent to threaten and do them harm. And it turns out that shortly after that broadcast, that stream, several of those agents were swatted. This is getting ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous at this point. It is utterly beyond ridiculous at this point. He is, I believe the guy's name is, oh, actually, I can't remember his name right now. But he is in some serious legal jeopardy at this point. And good, he should be. Mayor Jacob Fry, Governor Walz, Tampon Tim, they are demanding that ICE leave the state, but President Trump is doubling and tripling down. He's using this as or he's citing it as a possible justification for implementing the Insurrection Act. And I think it's time at this point. It's time. I've heard some people say it's not time. I've heard some people who I actually think are good, and I respect them. I respect their opinions, but they're saying that it's not time yet. And maybe that video that I saw where that person said, those people said that, maybe it was done before this latest incident, but it's time to implement the Insurrection Act at this point. It's time. This is an insurrection. It's much more of an insurrection than anything that happened on January 6th. Broadcasting data from a looted government vehicle. They are probably going to get charged with some felonies. Theft of government property, disseminating the information, the personal information of federal employees. I mean, what more do you need? But I want to take a step back, because CNN had somebody on talking about this, and the take that this person had was utterly disgusting. I couldn't believe it when I saw this morning and was prepping for the show. So let's take a look at this, because this, how these people let some of this stuff spill out of their faces is beyond me. I mean, none of it makes any sense. But check this out.
If there were neighbors and others who came out to help this person, that is just an example of Minnesota being a place where we help our neighbors. And we are clear that the ICE agents have been coming here, and there's over 2,000 of them. And they've been attacking and terrorizing our state. So yes, neighbors will come out and be helpful. I'm not certain if they had brooms or a shovel. That is to be further investigated.
If they did, in fact, have some sort of weapons to use to attack the ICE officer, would that change your opinion of whatever unfolded next?
Actually, no, right? Because from our vantage point, we wanted to make sure, and always wanted to make sure, that Minnesotans are being dealt with properly. And when we think
no. If the investigation reveals that they were attacking the agents with weapons, shovels and sticks and the like, that wouldn't change his opinion at all. That's insane. Wow. just so that they're basically calling for an insurrection. How else do you take that? Agents, federal agents doing their job, law enforcement of any kind, doing their job, and he thinks it's perfectly fine for neighbors to come out and interfere with those operations. Looks like we got some people in the chat. Ricky Robinson, thank you for being here, sir. I appreciate it. Sackhead Sean, he was first. And the Reaver of Common Sense is in the chat. Thank you all for being here. Jersey Joe, Reaver of Common Sense, says Democrats impeached Donald Trump over an alleged insurrection because he waited 2 hours before telling people to go home. Well, yeah, I mean, that's basically what happened. If the standard was delay equals incitement, and that standard has already been abandoned, long been abandoned. Accountability is being applied selectively and everyone can see it. Well, everyone with a couple of firing neurons can see it. I don't know how many of the people on the left qualify. Sackhead Sean says they are openly calling for law enforcement to be attacked for enforcing, yes, for enforcing laws. They are insurgents now. Unbelievable. No, it's not. It's not unbelievable. It is totally believable. It's because this is what they do. This is what they do. All right, so we're going to keep an eye on that because that's, I mean, we know that it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse, and more people are going to get hurt. It's only a matter of time. It's unfortunate. It shouldn't happen. It doesn't have to happen. But these leftists are inciting it. And President Trump is not going to stand for it because this is what he had to say after hearing about the insurrection. If the corrupt politicians of Minnesota don't obey the law and stop the professional agitators and insurrectionists from attacking the patriots of ICE who are only trying to do their job, I will institute the Insurrection Act, which many presidents have done before me, and quickly put an end to the travesty that is taking place in that once great state. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think he should just go ahead and do it. Just go ahead and do it. B says, it's Trump time. Send in the military and let's squash this noise. Well said. Couldn't have said it better. These people are utterly ridiculous. All right. Let's move on because I didn't really have that prepared. I just saw that this morning and wanted to mention it. Ricky Robinson says, now that he said it, he damn well better. Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, at this point, I mean, what are we really waiting for? Are we waiting for another agent to get hurt? Are we waiting for another shooting? Are we waiting for another fatality? I mean, at this point, we got to do it. We got to get it done. And after how they use the summer of love to explain away obvious voter fraud, I can't believe he hasn't already. Yeah, Ricky, I mean, yeah. I got nothing to add to that. All right. Let's move on to what I actually did have prepared for today. And I wanted to talk about what's going on in Iran. And the confirmed death toll in Iran is over 2,500. But I think we can all agree that the real number is probably somewhere upwards of 13,000, because you can't trust the numbers that these, I mean, that's like believing the numbers that Hamas put out, and their death toll numbers. I mean, it's just, and then we can see with the limited footage that is being disseminated by some of the protesters when they can get a signal, that the IRGC, the regime, is just mowing people down. They're using live ammunition. They're using snipers, heavy machine guns mounted on their trucks, just like Hamas did on October 7th. And the citizens are targets. I got a video I'm going to show you in a little bit. They're going into hospitals and killing the injured. But what's going on in Iran, on top of the global implications, what's going on in Iran should serve as the ultimate rebuttal to the notion that you don't need an AR-15. The people in Tehran and all over Iran, where they're being terrorized by the regime, would love to have a fraction of the number of so-called weapons of war that we have in this country that the left wants to confiscate. Why do they want to confiscate them? Do they want to act like the regime in Iran eventually? Well, that's my opinion. The only reason, and I don't know where this came from, but the only reason a government would want to take your guns is because they're afraid they're going to do something you would shoot them for. Every time a politician, a leftist, someone who doesn't know any better tells you that weapons of war don't belong on the streets, show them what's going on in Iran right now. And if they still believe that, then you know they're too far gone. I talk about all the time how I was told by someone that if it's your time, it's your time and you can't fight it. Well, they can have that opinion if they want. And I want them to tell that to somebody who has family in Iran being terrorized by the regime. And one of the most well-known cases over there is 26-year-old Irfan Soltani. And he was arrested for being a protester on January 8th, sentenced without a trial, and he was scheduled to be hanged on January 14th, 6 days later. And I mean, that's just, where's the due process crowd? Everyone on the left has been completely silent on what's going on in Iran. And it really blows my mind. It probably shouldn't, but it does. But because the populace in Iran is unarmed, they don't have to worry about a standoff. They don't have to worry about real resistance. I mean, I give all credit in the world to the people of Iran who are standing up. I think that great. They're doing what they can. There's reports that they've gone into some police stations and disarmed some of the police and taken some of their weapons, and that's fantastic. But I mean, that's a small fraction of the population that has access to that. So the regime doesn't really have to worry about a standoff. They can just snatch anybody off the street they want. Go into I believe Irfan Zoltani was actually snatched out of his home and turned into an example. Now his execution was delayed. He was scheduled to be executed on the 14th. It's been delayed. He's still alive from all reports from his family and things of that nature. So we'll see if they decide, because I think they thought they were just going to be able to execute this kid and no one was going to hear about it. We heard about it. It's been publicized. It's, like I said, one of the most well-known cases over there. So we'll see if they decide to let him go once this is all said and done. But this regime, the Iranian regime, has failed to do the one thing that governments are supposed to do, and that is protect the people, keep the lights on, make it so that they can prosper. Tehran has a day zero water crisis going on right now. Their reservoir they spent all the money they were supposed to spend on waging a jihad, funding Hamas, Hezbollah, all these terror groups. And now the people have had enough. When you disarm the population, you can ignore is real import. And what they do, they'll get snatched out of their homes for doing it. Telling a starving population to basically pray for rain is, while you spend their money on proxy wars that you can't win, they've abdicated their responsibility. And they never really thought what they had was responsibility anyway, because the only thing they were interested in is killing Americans, taking over the West, waging jihad. That's it. Now, despite the disarmament, there are some pockets of resistance units that are, like I said, raiding police stations, disarming the goons that are terrorizing them. Donald Trump put on Truth Social that it's time for the Iranians to take over, and he signed off that, I don't have it to show you, but he signed it off with MEGA, Make Iran Great Again. He's doing what pretty much anyone who values freedom and values the Iranian people, what they need to do. Well, he's doing it. I know people don't want to see boots on the ground in Iran. I generally agree. If that happens, I'm not going to be too upset about it. For the simple fact that this is not, if that were to happen, it wouldn't be the United States going in and doing the job that the Iranian people should be doing. We would be supporting what they have already started. And in that respect, I wouldn't mind. I would rather it be logistical help and weapons and things of that nature. I would rather not see American troops on the ground over there again. But we'll see how it plays out. That said, Iranian state TV did do something that if we were to intervene militarily, again, it wouldn't be, I wouldn't be too opposed, because what they did, they broadcast a banner with a picture of the 2024 Butler rally where President Trump was shot. And the picture, well, you know what, let's take a look at it. They broadcast this picture, and the Persian says, "This time the bullet won't miss." Whether you think they have the capability to carry out a threat like that doesn't matter to me. It is what it is. It's a threat. And I would not be opposed to us mitigating that threat. Seriously. I don't know. I mean, I get why people would come at it and say it really didn't mean anything. It wasn't really a threat. But Sackhead Sean says they are almost begging to be yoinked now. Yeah. Agreed. They're not trying to win an argument. They're not trying to win hearts and minds. What they're doing is issuing a death threat against the one guy who, when he draws a red line, you can be sure that he means it. Not like Obama's red line, where he drew a red line and then they just kicked it out the way. They couldn't care less. Not like Bribin when he said, "Don't." Don't. What does that mean? It meant nothing. But they know, they've seen the evidence. If President Trump says don't, better not. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if that is the impetus for some intervention over there. I know that we have a carrier group headed in that direction. I know that we have, I saw reports of C-130s or C-5s, I can't remember exactly, heading over there. So we'll see. We will see. But you put a bullseye on the leader of the free world, the undisputed leader of the free world at this point. You have just accelerated the death spiral that your country is in. This is different than other protests that we've seen over the years over there. This is different. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. They're committing genocide over there. They're blocking out internet access. There's reports of overflow morgues from where all the bodies are being piled up. And like I said, in fact, let's take a look at that, because there's a report, or there are reports that they are going into, like I think I mentioned this already. There are reports of them going into hospitals and finishing off the injured. This is a hospital in Tehran. So these monsters are, like Sean said, begging to get yoinked. Reaver of Common Sense says, the yoinking coming to a dictator close to you. Seriously, it's almost got to happen at this point. But circling back to this is the lesson that the media, the American Pravda, refuses to acknowledge. The Iranian people are 100% disarmed. They're facing snipers, truck-mounted machine guns, 26-year-old shopkeepers being snatched up and put on trial. And the Irfan Zoltani, his sister is a lawyer, and they wouldn't let her view the case file that they had against him, because there was no case file. They saw him as a protester, and so they planned to kill him. Period. End of story. So when they start talking about, and I mentioned this before, but when they start talking about disarming us, when they start talking about how we don't need these weapons, point them to Iran. Point them to Iran and see if they reevaluate their position. They won't. Of course they won't. But if there was ever any evidence, if there was ever any proof that the Second Amendment is one of the greatest protections we have to keep us free, this is it. Irfan Zoltani was charged with waging a war against God. That's just funny to me. That's just funny to me. Waging a war against God, really? How do you even respond to that? They're murdering their own citizens, plotting to kill a world leader. They're a clown show at this point, really. It's a clown show. They claim to be the hand of God. And all they really are is just the executioner, the hangman. And if anyone's waging a war against the one true God, it's them. but the King of Kings is not impressed. Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. All right. I want to talk about something else real quick that I actually wrote an article on SHR about this. New York, Big Tish James has she's waging a jurisdictional jihad, so to speak. Lawrence Michael DeStefano, owner of Indie Guns in Orlando, Florida, is facing an indictment of 71 felony counts in New York. But he's in Florida. Yeah, getting to that. Big Tish and the NYPD, they're seeking a maximum sentence of 521 years. And the reason for these 71 felonies and the sentence that they're seeking, he sold unfinished firearm frames and receivers and parts, which is perfectly legal in Florida. He sold them to customers in New York, which, from my understanding, and I could be wrong, but I was under the impression that that was legal too. But he sold these parts to customers in New York, and now they are attempting to treat this guy, who is a resident of a completely different state. They're seeking to charge him as a criminal manufacturer for conduct that happened entirely outside of their borders. What they're doing is, this is an end run around the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act, the PLCAA. That's what this is. It's an attempt to enforce their draconian, unconstitutional gun laws into the law of the land. They're trying to set a precedent. They're trying to bury a 65-year-old man for the rest of his life, 5 centuries, which is just, it's so stupid. But his only crime that I can see is being a resident of Florida and engaging in an activity that they don't like. Now, he says he is never going to give up his customers. He has a customer list of over 50,000, and Big Tish wants it. And why do you think she wants that list? She wants that list to go after his customers. She wants a registry. They all want a registry. He says he will die in jail before he ever gives them up. Now, he was, a couple of years ago, he was involved in a case with 9 other manufacturers like him who actually did give up their customer list. And he says he's not going to do it. He views the privacy of his customers as sacrosanct as a priest in confession. And he is not going to willingly help New York build a database, a gun registry. He's not going to do it. And good for him. Because the only thing that that's good for is future confiscation. And New York has done this before. They I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but he had built many guns, handguns, rifles. He built them all. It was legal, but he's now in jail. He's still in jail. This happened a few years ago. He's still in jail for engaging in legal behavior. Now, as part of that case with the other 9 manufacturers and parts dealers, they found against him and issued a $7.8 million judgment. He wasn't there. They did it in absentia. These tactics are about as dirty as it gets. And we know that she plays dirty. She ran her campaign on getting Donald Trump. And we saw the dirty tactics that she employed in that regard. But they issued this $7.8 million default judgment and issued a warrant for his arrest, citing terroristic threats. He's never been in New York. He wasn't present for that case. It was decided in absentia. And so they charged him with terroristic threats, issued a warrant. And what really, really bothers me is that Ron DeSantis in Florida cooperated. He has been arguably perhaps the best governor in the country until that. Governor Hochul called him and he signed the warrant to have the sheriffs go pick him up. And I haven't heard his explanation as to why yet. But if New York can reach all the way into Florida to crush a legal business, then the 10th Amendment is officially done. If this succeeds, the 10th Amendment is officially done. Federalism is no more. This case sets a precedent that any blue state governor, any blue state attorney general, California, Washington, Illinois, any blue state governor, Maryland, any of them, can basically act as a national police force for their specific brand of morality or something. So if you live in a free state like Florida or Texas or Arkansas, and you sell a product to someone in not so free state, a captured state, you can be subject to prison time. And in this case, 571 years. If New York wins this, every hobbyist in the country, every garage in America becomes a crime scene. The moment that a blue state commie decides that they don't like the hobby that you're engaged in. It ceases to be a republic of states, and we're just a collection of provinces waiting for a blue state to tell us what is legal and what isn't. Just let's see what the chat has to say. Sackhead Sean says, why go through the locked and closed doors when you can sidestep the door, go around back and sneak in the back door? Yeah. And that's all she knows how to do. The onus falls on the buyer for violating their own state law. I'm not even sure that they did. Especially in light of, well, I guess Bruin doesn't really apply in this case, but I'm really not sure that the buyers violated any law. Maybe they did. Maybe they did, and I missed it. Who knows? But the fact is, and yeah, like you said, even if they did violate a law, that's on them, not the seller. Especially not to the tune of 571 years. Anyway. All right, y'all. I want to, wow. It's been like drinking from a fire hose. I mean, there's so much information, so much new. Every time you think you're prepared for a show, something else happens, and it's like, oh, I got to talk about that. And so I'm way past the time when I would have normally gotten a word in from our sponsor. But today's, hello, Emperor. Glad to have you here. But yeah, let's get a word in from our sponsor. And sponsor for today's show is Carry Girl Gear. And fellas, Valentine's Day is coming. Valentine's Day is a month away, less than a month away. So do yourself a favor, head over to carrygirl.com and check out the Love Club, where love is rooted in faith and worn boldly. These are some limited Valentine's Day designs that your wife or your girlfriend will absolutely love. You are sealed with God's love because he first loved us. These are some great designs. So check out carrygirl.com and head over there and check out all of these great Valentine's Day designs. She will not be disappointed, which means you will not be disappointed. This one's one of my favorites, actually. Hearts in the shape of a Glock, even though I'm not a Glock fan, but I still like that shirt. And this is another great one. Choose, and it's got pictures of rifles, pistols, grenades, knives. Yeah, this is that's an awesome one. You should check that out. And then jewelry, the angel wings necklace, a paperclip chain cross necklace. I mean, this is all some really great stuff. So please head over to carrygirl.com and check out all of the great designs and accessories that are over there. This is a good one. We also have this one on 7 Armors, the Heartbeat tee with images, EKG images with rifles and shotguns. We go together like guns and ammo. Seriously, guys, check it out. Your wife or your girlfriend will not be disappointed, and neither will you. Head over to carrygirl.com and check out all of the great designs. And you will have a happy Valentine's Day. All right, y'all. I am Big E, and you are watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch my good friend, Sackhead Sean, who's in the chat. with the Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. The Reaver of Common Sense, who's also in the chat, thanks for being here. Jersey Joe, every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific. And BZ with the Berserk Bobcat Saloon every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Be sure to like and subscribe to all of those great shows. I believe we are at 700, still at 734. We've gone up a little bit, but then we went back down. You know how that goes. It's just the nature of the beast. But we're at 734, so please like and subscribe and share all of the great shows. Share the channel so that we can continue to grow and reach as many people as we possibly can. And now back to our regularly scheduled programming. So, Sackhead Sean says we're at 736. That's awesome. So we've gotten 2 today because I looked earlier and it was at 734 still. So thank you all for subscribing and sharing. We really, really appreciate it. So yesterday, on January 13th, so it's been a couple of days. SCOTUS heard arguments in West Virginia versus BPJ and Little versus Heckox. And these were cases involving protecting girls' sports, Title IX. And I think you all know where we stand on this. Dudes should not be competing against women. Boys should not be competing against girls. I mean, it's the fact that we're even having this discussion, because it's not a debate. It's not a debate. But the fact that we're having this discussion at all is just mystifying to me. Completely and utterly mystifying. Emperor says men have zero business competing with women at all. But absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a saying, several memes out there where it basically says weak men want to compete against women and weak minds support it. And one of the weakest minds is actually sitting on the Supreme Court. This is the ultimate illustration of a DEI hire that you could possibly imagine. You thought Kamala Harris being VP was the ultimate DEI hire. No, 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 sir. Nope. Nope. Ketanji Brown Jackson on the Supreme Court is the ultimate DEI hire. And I want you to listen to, and if you thought Kamala Harris served up word salads on a regular basis, buckle up, Buttercup, because this one is just wow.
You have the overarching classification, you know, everybody has to be, play on the team that is the same as their sex at birth. But then you have a gender identity definition that is operating within that, meaning a distinction, meaning that for cisgender girls, they can play consistent with their gender identity. For transgender girls, they can't.
So I think that, okay, so you're, as to the part of...
And I can only imagine that this lawyer was like, how do I even respond to this? I can only imagine. But did you catch what she said there?
But then you have a gender identity definition that is operating within that, meaning a distinction, meaning that for cisgender girls.
Cisgender girls. What does that mean? Obviously, she was trying to say cisgender, which is still stupid. But the lawyer who she was addressing there, I can only imagine what was going through his head to try and answer this question. And it even wasn't, I don't even know if it was really a question, but answer this in such a way that didn't get him kicked out of the court, because it was just so utterly ridiculous. Justice Kavanaugh, he reportedly said something along the lines of, you can't sweep aside the harm that girls are dealing with when they lose a podium spot or a scholarship to a guy. And I mean, it's just such an obvious conclusion to come to. The fact that this woman sitting on the Supreme Court can't grasp that. I mean, this is the same woman who said that she couldn't define what a woman was in her confirmation hearing. So, I mean, this is just par for the course. This is just par for the course. Cisgingers. I mean, did she invent a new species or something? I mean, unbelievable. And so in these oral arguments, they're trying to find some sort of exit ramp, suggesting that we only ban boys who have gone through puberty, as if up until then there's no difference between boys and girls, which is obviously just a complete lie. There are differences between men and boys from the beginning. Now, are those differences in terms of strength and muscle density and all that stuff, are those differences less before puberty? Sure, but they're still there, and you can see it in tournaments where they have boys competing against girls for some reason. You can see it. I saw a video of a tournament, I think it might have been a class, where this boy who was about 4 inches shorter than the girl, and he may even have been younger, competing in or doing a lesson in a martial arts studio, and he completely destroyed her. So the differences are there, and those differences only get magnified once they hit puberty. But attempting to go that route is basically turning high school or school coaches in general into medical examiners. And who's going to administer these hormone checks if they decide to go that route? It's just so utterly ridiculous that it defies description. That something like this has even not only just a discussion, but that it's risen to the Supreme Court. I mean, it's ridiculous. Excellent point. B says, riddle me this. Why is this only affecting women? Maybe we need to look into how society is feminizing men. Something that I've talked about a number of times. And yeah, society has been feminizing men. It's been going on since the 80s. Get in touch with your feminine side. I've talked about this before. I'm not gonna get into it again right now because I could spend a whole other hour on that or more. And Emperor says, well, for one, men can't give birth. Funny you should mention that, because while this hearing was going on, Josh Hawley was, and I know I have it here. Josh Hawley was questioning this woman who claimed to be a doctor. And the whole exchange, I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's almost 5 minutes long, but the whole exchange is just, you know what? I like I said, it defies description. So let me just go ahead and play it, and you decide for yourself.
Do you think that men can get pregnant?
I hesitated there because I wasn't sure where the conversation.
The answer, of course, is no, they can't. But this broad can't seem to answer that.
Was going, or what the goal was. I mean, I do take care of patients with different identities. I take care of many women. I take care of people with different identities. And so that's where I paused. I think, yeah, I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Well, the goal is just the truth. So can men get pregnant?
Again, the reason I paused there is I'm not really sure what the goal of the question is.
The goal is just to establish a biological reality. You just said a moment ago that science and evidence should control, not politics. Absolutely. So let's just test that proposition. Can men get pregnant?
I take care of people with many identities, but
can men get pregnant?
Many women that can get pregnant. I do take care of people that don't identify as women. That
can men get pregnant?
Again, as I'm saying,
let me just remind you what you testified to a moment ago.
This is not a difficult question. Not to people with any ounce of common sense or the slightest familiarity with biology. And this woman is supposed to be a doctor.
Science and evidence should control, not politics. So can men get pregnant? You're a doctor, I think.
Science and evidence should guide medicine.
Do science and evidence tell us that men can get pregnant? Biological men, can they get pregnant?
I also think yes/no questions like this are a political tool. And
no, yes/no questions are about the truth, doctor. Let's not make a mockery of this proceeding. This is about science and evidence, and I'm asking you. You know, the United States Supreme Court just heard arguments yesterday at great length on this question. This is not a hypothetical question. This is not theoretical. It affects real people in their real lives. And you're here as an expert, called by the other side as an expert.
I think we can all agree at this point that the word expert in these contexts means absolutely nothing.
And you've been telling us that you follow, right, you're a doctor, and you follow the science and the evidence. So I just want to know, based on the science, can men get pregnant? That's a yes or no question. It really is, I think.
I think you're trying to reduce the complexity of a lot.
I'm not. I'm trying to get, it's not complex. I'm trying to get to an answer, and I'm trying to test, frankly, your veracity as a medical professional and as a scientist. Can men get pregnant?
I think you're also conflating
this is extraordinary.
Male with
no, I'm not conflating male and female. They're two different things. There's biological men and there's biological women. And I want to know, can men get pregnant?
What you were talking about is
And that goes on. She never gives an answer. B says she's so afraid to offend someone, she has totally left her education behind. I'm not even sure if she's afraid to offend anyone at this point. I think she's that captured by the ideology that she really believes this. I could be wrong. It could be fear of offending people, but And maybe I just don't have any faith in any of these people. But I mean, it's not, it's not a difficult question. Unbelievable. Wow. And these people allegedly have medical degrees. All right. Emperor asks, what world is she living in? Who knows? Sackhead Sean says, now I will never know. Can men get pregnant? I am forever lost without this knowledge. Well, if you were waiting for her to answer, then yes, you are forever lost. Unbelievable. All right, let's move on because I could spend the rest of the show just making fun of that, but I want to get into this. I wanted to get into this earlier and spend a little more time on it than we have. So we'll just see if we can hit all the points and speed run through this real quick. The left has been on this. The left has been on this thing about Christian nationalism and how it's a bad thing. Well, I'm gonna make the case that I think it is a great thing. Every law, every statute, from tax law to traffic lights, is a moral judgment backed by the sword of the state and enforced by force or coercion. And the question is, they always say, you can't legislate morality. The question is not if we can legislate morality. All laws are a reflection of some morality. And so the question isn't if we can legislate morality, but whose morality we legislate. And right now we're governed by a group of people who think that sex is a hate crime and cisgender or cisginger is a legal category. And a law without any moral foundation isn't neutral. It's just power backed by the force of the state. So we can either have laws that are based on the creator's design or the whims of a bureaucrat with a God complex. For most of history, modern history anyway, Christian nationalism was basically just Western civilization. The Mayflower Compact explicitly stated that its purpose was the advancement of the Christian faith. And if you don't know what the Mayflower Compact is, I suggest you look that up because it's an important part of our history. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin condemns any people. That's Proverbs 14:34. I actually just read that this morning. Historical progress has always been driven by Christians who refuse to stay in their lane, so to speak. William Wilberforce led a 20-year Christian crusade to abolish the slave trade. And I love when leftists talk about how the founders were white slave owners, and anything they said because of that shouldn't be taken seriously. They were against it. If you have read any history, they inherited the slave trade and they did everything they could to abolish it. But if the early church had stayed out of politics, we'd still be watching gladiators kill each other for sport. Christian nationalism used to be called having a spine. But somehow modern Christendom has morphed into this, into this pacifist lie that staying out of the public square is somehow more spiritual, is more godly. And we Christians retreated to the sanctuary, retreated to the building of the church, and demons filled the vacuum. And because we left, we now have laws that subsidize the destruction of families, punish business owners for their convictions, allow women to kill their babies, allow doctors to mutilate children because they feel a certain kind of way. Proverbs 29:2 says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan. The people have been groaning for a long time, especially in the previous 4 years under Biden. And I don't really want to make this about a particular politician. But Christians, when they retreated from politics and we retreated from the public square, they allowed this wickedness to take over. When Christians have this mentality, or the modern Christian church seems to have this mentality that, as I said, it's more pious, it's more godly, it's more spiritual to just worship and not try and I don't want to say impose, but not try and make our faith known so that we actually have an influence in how we're governed. Back in the day, that Christians saw that as their mandate. The legal system that we have is because Christians got involved. The idea of due process, the idea, I mean, all of our entire Constitution basically is a quote or a paraphrase of the book of Leviticus. This is a problem, not just for the church, but the fact that the church has retreated the way it has. It's a problem for the country. It's a problem for the world. I mean, look at what's happening in Europe. Muslims have basically filled that role that Christians used to fill. And Muslims have been attempting to take over in that way. They've gotten involved in politics, and they're trying to shape laws to meet their goals, to meet their to make their faith dominant. You have all these halal restaurants, or restaurants that are halal compliant. Food and grocery stores that you see stickers on them where they're halal compliant. And because the Christian church hasn't tried to combat that, this is what we're dealing with. This is why we see all of the mosques being built, and why we see all of the Islamic schools being built. Christians, in fact, let's go back to the Crusades for a second. When people talk about the Crusades, they immediately envision the Knights Templar, and they were a formidable fighting force, and they handed the Muslims a lot of defeats. But there was another order called the Hospitallers. They started off as monks who started hospitals, and they cared for the poor and the sick. And they evolved into their own fighting force because knights and nobles joined the order and saw their goal as a way to advance the Christian faith. And they fought against the Muslims right alongside the Knights Templar, and just as formidable a fighting force, because they knew that their goal, they knew that their mandate was to advance Christendom. And you can't do that if you retreat into the sanctuary. You can't do that if you're not vocal about your faith, if you're not vocal about what is important from a Christian perspective. You can't do that if you don't vote. You can't do that if you don't have a voice, if you don't use your voice. And people will say, well, they'll compare it to Muslims, but here's the difference. And I mentioned this before. If you disagree with me, if you disagree with Christianity, I will pray for you and keep it moving. If you disagree with a Muslim, they will cut your head off and they will enslave your wives and your children. So the question is, which way do you want to go? Do you want to just sit back and hope that this march that Islam is on abates? Do you hope that they just, you know what, we're done. We're not gonna continue this? Or do you engage and you say, not today? And I don't know about you, but I'm not just gonna sit back and and hope and pray that this stops. Faith without works is dead. I have faith that it's going to stop, but we have to work. We have to get involved. And if you don't get involved, if you don't use your voice, if you don't vote, if you don't get involved in local politics, what we see happening in Europe is going to happen here. What we see happening in Texas and Florida is going to spread. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that that does not happen. All right, y'all. We got about 8 minutes left, so let's let's get into some twitchy goodness. And one of the absolute dumbest people in Congress, and I mean seriously, stupid. And I know Eric Swalwell and Mazie Hirono are the obvious. Well, Mazie, she's a senator, but Eric Swalwell and some of the others are obvious. But this guy, Ted Lieu, is one of the absolute dumbest. Dan Goldman's another one. But Ted Lieu is one of the dumbest people in public life. I mean, I'm surprised he's even conscious, honestly. But there's this idea that President Trump is slowed down and that he's fallen asleep and all this other stuff. Well, first, let's take a look at this, because he posted this about grocery prices hitting record highs in 25, and he posted this this chart. But this chart basically shows that the Biden years was when it all kicked off. And they've done this several times. Dan Goldman, I think, posted a similar chart a while back where he basically said he was trying to say that President Trump was the problem, but then the chart showed that the dates were all under Biden. So there's that. But then Aaron Rupar posts this, and he says that President Trump fell asleep during this meeting in the Oval Office.
And both all the wonderful men to the right who worked so hard on this. Peter Welsh, it is a bipartisan issue, and understanding where we are in this country and how important the health of certainly our children are is so important.
Now, you can't really tell from that angle if his eyes are closed. Let's just stipulate for the record that they are closed. But there are several times during this video where he's nodding his head because he's paying attention to what is being said.
USDA is posting today.
These people, they just can't, anything they possibly can, they're going to try to use against President Trump. It's really, it's comical and sad all at the same time at this point. It really is. Let's see what else we got going on over on Twitchy. Excuse me. Jacob Fry. Let's take a look at this, because he's another one. This guy is, I really don't understand how these soy boys get elected. But let's just take a listen to this, and then we'll get into it. We don't even have to go any further than that. We don't even have to let them go any further than that, because we don't have to imagine, because we've seen it. We've seen an invasion by illegal aliens all over the country to the tune of, they like to say 12 million, but I think it's probably closer to 30, 35 million illegal aliens taking up residence in all of these blue cities. They don't share our values, and we see the consequences of it. Yeah, imagine. Just imagine. I mean, the lack of self-awareness, I've been saying this for a long time, the lack of self-awareness of these people is off the charts. Absolutely off the charts. We have been invaded. We were invaded. And now what President Trump is doing is trying to clean up that mess. And unfortunately, that is probably going to lead to some messes of its own. But it's not Trump's fault. It's not the ICE agent's fault. It's the fault of the people who allowed the invasion in the first place. And remember, I can't remember exactly the year, but remember when the IRS was going after conservatives? We didn't blame the IRS agents. Well, maybe we did a little bit, but we didn't go after them. We didn't dox them. We didn't vandalize their vehicles. We didn't SWAT them. But that's what these people are doing. And these people are celebrating that and thinking that it's perfectly okay because reasons. We'll see how this plays out. We'll see how this plays out. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be real interesting to see what consequences these people face electorally anyway. People like Jacob Fry. We know Tim Walz, his career is pretty much over. Ilhan Omar, all the rest of them. We shall see. All right, y'all, that's it for this briefing. I'm not here to just speak into the wind and fill airtime. I'm here to equip Christian men and women to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope in the next generation. If you want to preserve share, bring other people into the fight, bring another man into the fight. And if you want to wear what you stand for, head over to missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors. Check out all of the great designs that we have over there about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And remember, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.